Hey guys, in this video we want to talk about a nighttime stretching mobility routine that you can do in the comfort of your living room to help undo some of the effects of sitting. Myself and everybody around me, we're all spending more time in front of a computer. We're spending more time in that forward shoulder position. So we want to have a routine that you can do, while you're watching a show at night, and just kind of undo some of those effects and kind of maintain that mobility so you're not feeling so stiff and sore the following morning. So in this routine, we're going to cover flexibility for the spine. We're going to look at some things in for the shoulders and things that'll pull the shoulders forward. We're going to look at the front of the hip, the hamstrings, the inside of the thigh, and then the calf and Achilles area. So fairly quick routine. You'll probably spend 20-ish minutes on it, 30 minutes maybe if you want to spend some time in the stretches, but it should be pretty easy to follow, and again, no equipment really needed. The only thing you're going to want is some kind of pillow to comfort your knees, even on a carpeted floor like we have. That pressure on your kneecap the tenderness of that is going to limit the stretch before you kind of get into any kind of muscular or tendinous tension. So the first stretch I like to start out with is a hip flexor stretch. There are no rules or order to this. For whatever reason, I feel like if I get my hips opened up first, my low back loosens up, and I think I get a little more. I also tend to probably spend more time on the initial stretches, and the hip flexor stretch is an important one, so it's one I like to use. I'm doing this in front of our love sack. Everybody should have a love sack, giant bean bag with memory foam. It is fantastic. But you can also do this on the corner of your couch and those kinds of things. It's going to be the exact same prop. This is easier to use. So for this stretch, we're going to put one knee on a pillow. Foot's going to go up on something behind you. Again, I'm using the love sack for this. And we're going to try to stretch the front of the thigh here. So when I stretch this, I'm going to kind of get into a kneeling position. This foot's going to come out in front, and I'm just going to kind of lean into that. And that's going to give me a stretch in the front of the thigh. Now, I can easily just kind of do this. And we're looking for a low intensity, long duration type stretch. So if I really want to create change in tendinous structures and length in tendinous structures, I probably need close to 2 minutes at total time under tension. So, you're trying to hang out here for a while. So, we can play around and hunt around, but the key here is long duration holds. So next what I'm going to do is, again, I can just stay in this position, but for me and for a lot of people, internal rotation of the hip is a challenge, meaning that the hip is going to rotate to the inside, the thigh is going to rotate to the inside, and the foot is going to go to the outside. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to tuck my hip in from the side. I'm going to turn my foot. You can see that I'm going to turn my foot a little bit to the outside, and now with that hip turned out, I can lean into it, and it just feels a little different. Okay. I can also try to tilt or posteriorly tilt my pelvis. So if I switch views, I can try to tilt my pelvis in. So again, foot rotated to the outside, pelvis tilted in, right? That's another version of that stretch. And we can squeeze the glute if we'd like to really kind of change the feel in the front of that hip. There are no real rules here. We're just trying to put that hip in a position where it is not throughout the day. So hip tucked in, belly tucked, lean into it, feel a nice stretch. Right? You can drop down to the floor, change that stretch a little bit that way. I can get into this front knee now a little bit and kind of push that to the outside and just sink in. Now what's kind of cool is when I sink into this a bit, not only do I got a stretch on the front of this back hip, now I'm starting to also feel a little bit of a groin or maybe even a little bit of a hamstring stretch on the lead leg. So when I drop into this kind of elbow to instep type stretch, the key here is you'll notice to create space for me to fall, the natural tendency is for my foot to want to roll to the outside. This isn't a very functional position. There's nothing that we really do on the outside edge of the foot. We talk about running or squatting or any of those types of activities. So when I do this stretch, I want to get my foot in a functional position. So we're going to use that tripod foot. I want to make sure the ball of my foot's on the ground, the heel of my foot's on the ground, and my arch is lifted or active. Now from there, when I sink into that stretch, I'm training a position where my knee is kind of in line with the middle of the foot. I can mess with pushing that knee way far forward. I can feel it in the groin, and I can hang out in a position that is a little more functional. Okay, and again, you can rotate, right? I can come a little this way. That kind of takes the stretch off. I can lean into this hip, which not only increases the stretch on this leg, but also on that trail leg. I can squeeze my glute on my right side. That'll really hit the front of that hip. I can push that knee out in front of the toes as best I can. And just a real nice stretch. And we can spend, several minutes kind of sinking and holding in that position. The more I cock this leg up, the more I pull the leg up in the back, the more I'm going to get kind of a thigh or a little bit more of a quad stretch versus a hip flexor stretch. So that just kind of becomes optional as far as how high you have this back leg popped. You can lay it flat on the floor. That's okay too, but it just adds a little tension with the foot popped up. With your foot on a couch, it's going to be definitely a little more quadricep type of a stretch. So, that would be my first routine, and all these I would do on both sides, but for the sake of the video, we're going to do one and one. So there's my hip flexor stretch. The next one I like to do is I go into an adductor or groin stretch. So for this, again, a lot of different options on how you want to do it, but I kind of like loading this lead leg like I'm going to squat, kick this leg out to the side, and then I'm just kind of sinking and hunting into kind of a lateral lunge position. And you can play around with however you want to do this. Heel stays down. I got a little bit of a stretch here on this inner thigh, but now I'm getting a big groin stretch. I can rotate that heel up. Gives me a little more hammy on this side. Maybe adductor magnus, but kind of inner thigh, hamstring. And then I can fiddle with this knee, right? If I let that knee collapse in, I'm going to sink more. If I push that out, it's going to be a little more groin. But you can kind of hunt and play. And again, you're looking for that functional foot position on that lead leg. And I can bring my body over top. I can rotate it out. I can go elbow to instep. Again, just kind of playing around, hunting around. When you get tired on that side, just switch. Solid foot, sink into the right. And you'll notice I have a little more flexibility on this side than I do on when my left leg stanced. Okay, so we can play around with that lateral lunge, lateral squat type position. Again, very functional. You get some adductor and groin on the stance leg, as well as the trail leg getting a really nice adductor stretch there, which I really enjoy. From there, I like going into a calf Achilles type of a stretch. Now, this is probably easier to do on a stairwell, but again, I'm trying to stay in my living room here. So what I want to do is I want to stretch the bottom plantar aspect of my foot. I want my toes to kind of get pulled into extension, and I also want to stretch my Achilles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spread my toes as much as I possibly can, and I'm going to plant them on the floor. Big toe and big toe knuckle has to stay on the floor. And I'm just going to kind of hunt around, and I'm going to try to drive that heel back. And as I sit into that, it really puts some tension through the Achilles. So I'm already feeling a little bit of tension in my Achilles, and now I'm going to load it by taking my knee towards the carpet. And that gives me a real nice stretch in the Achilles, as well as the inside of my shin. Again, I think the key here is that you got to keep that backwards pressure. If I shift my body weight forward, there's just no stretch, right? There's no tension. So you got to kind of try to drive that heel back to get this stretch to work. Again, imagine you're kind of sitting your foot off the edge of the stretch where you're on the edge of the step and you kind of sink. It's kind of like that, but we're here. Okay, and again, we do that on both sides. Play with different knee positions. That's a huge stretch for me. Okay. One of my favorites. From there, I'm going to shift into the upper body, and we're going to do a lat stretch. For the lat stretch, I like a lot of different stretches. Again, we're looking at one here that we can do anywhere. So we're going to use the arms over child's pose. For the arms over child's pose, we're going to set up like a normal child's pose. Feet are in a little close, knees are a little wide. We're going to sink like we're going to sink into a child's pose. But first I'm going to go into tabletop, all fours position. I'm going to take one hand and I'm going to put it in front of the other.
Then I'm going to sit back, kind of drop this forearm to the floor and sit back. And now I get a little more stretch on this right side, but I want to load it up. So I'm just going to lean my body heavy to the right. Now I can feel it pulling from my armpit, kind of all the way down my side wall. And I can really sink and pull and just dig into that stretch. Again, looking to spend a minute here. You can also, once you get over there, twist and really lift. And that rotation or that lift kind of hits a little more in the front, which is quite nice. Okay. And then the last stretch, the one I kind of finish with, is a quadruped rock. The all fours rock or quadruped rock is nice because it's very squatting type functional movement or pattern. So we're going to get to all fours, and you can do this with your toes down or your foot flat. I'm going to do it foot flat first. I'm going to arch the back and kind of create extension. So I'm going to allow a little bit of tilting in my pelvis. I want to feel these muscles down here kind of engage and turn on. My eyes and my chest is going to stay tall, and I'm just going to sit back deep into that stretch. I'm just going to kind of push through there, sink and hold. And you know, again, you kind of envision you're squatting. I might lean a little bit to the left or the right. And I'll walk back up. And we call it a rock, right? So we're just going back and forth. I can try it with my knees a little wider, feet apart. That's going to be a lot more of a groin stretch, like an adductor stretch. And we can rock in and out of that guy. And if I want to incorporate, my back wants to round almost immediately. Got to keep focusing on keeping that tight and sitting into it. Especially when I went wider here, I could feel my pelvis want to roll into that tilt. Which over air isn't a problem, right? Without weight, doesn't really matter. My spine can go wherever it wants, but if you want to use this to help you get ready for a weightlifting session, that's not going to work. Okay, there, wanted to tuck again. Tight, 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 and then sit into it. And then if I wanted to incorporate dorsiflexion or foot position, right, I can load the feet first. Now with the foot loaded, same tilt, and now I can sit kind of into that position again. You're not going to get as far. It becomes a little more of a foot type stretch here, but still a nice variety, especially if you're using it to kind of prep for a weightlifting type thing. Okay, so those are our quadruped rocking positions. And that would be my normal routine. Sometimes I'll do some prone propping. If my back's feeling a little tighter, I've been sitting more. Occasionally I'll throw in, some props where I kind of push through the mid-back, do a little reaching here, or even a full press up and really kind of extend in and push in through the press up position. If I think I've been doing a lot of sitting that day, I may add that in, but that would be my kind of evening routine. Obviously, I would do both sides and in longer holds, like really trying to get to where you may have to break it here and there, but trying to get to 2 minutes under tension. And I think you'll notice that if you hit that consistently, you'll start to notice you feel a little more free with your movements. But, I've noticed pretty quickly some of that morning stiffness in your back, your hips, or even in the feet when you're walking up and down the stairs. First thing in the morning, just kind of feels tight. A lot of that's gone away with consistently hitting these in the evening. So give that a go, see if it helps. We have a lot of these videos broken out on our YouTube page as well. So check us out there, and of course at fitforfunction.com. Thanks, and hope to see you soon.